Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Wealthy Legacy Journey. If you notice, Nathan's not with me today, but that's okay. We're kind of actually mixing things up. And this is Tim. You'll notice that we share the same last name, Liden. He's my dad. He's a super cool dude. You've heard me talking about the stock market algorithm that we're working on right now, and I'm really excited about that project. And I'm working on that with Tim. And so going forward, I really wanted to be able to incorporate not only the real estate side that I'm working on, with Nathan, NK Legacy Properties, but also what we're working on the stock market stuff, because we've got, there's algorithms and there's, we're working on building up a fund for that. And so just a lot of exciting moving parts that I think people might be interested in. What do these stair-step business things look like? And, all that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited. And today we're going to be talking about, Tim, you want to introduce your topic?
Well, I would like to talk about plans.
Those are
About
good.
sticking to a plan.
And one quick note before we do anything else about the importance of sticking to plans. I just want to note right now, it is 8:35 p.m. on a Friday night, and I am here recording this podcast for you guys because I'm passionate about this. And my plan is to be able to deliver huge value to you guys. And Tim's here giving his time to be able to deliver huge value to you guys. But I've been at VBS all week. I am tired. I just worked out, and then I got out here. And so my point in that, though, is what we're going to talk about. It is so important to stick to a plan. And one of the big ways that even I'm sticking to this plan right now is I've said I'm going to deliver a podcast to my people at least once a week, every week. And so even though it's Friday evening and maybe I could be doing other more fun things, I guess, well, I actually find this stuff to be really fun. This is what I'm doing. So whatever your plan is, whatever your goals are, stick to it. But out of the gate, I know you had a really cool story for us, Tim, on, sticking to a plan. Can you jump into that?
Absolutely. So I was actually chatting with a good friend of Kendall and mine, Derek Kenny, and he actually had posted a story about sea turtles. And I just thought it was the coolest thing because what he posted about was baby sea turtles and how after about 2 month incubation period time, they hatch and they're on the beach. And they usually hatch at night, and then they shoot straight for the water, right? That's the plan. Mama's turtle's plan is for those babies to go straight in the water, get safe, start to feed themselves, start to grow. But what happens is there is tons of light pollution all along the beaches, and especially where he was at. He was telling me the hotel manager said ask everyone to keep the lights off out in the back because the light would actually draw these baby sea turtles away from the water, so they would get distracted. And so many of them would never reach the water, and they're just running up toward the hotels and toward the condos and toward those areas. So Derek actually went out at midnight, and he's like, he just felt this overwhelming urge. He went out and he watched these baby sea turtles, and they started to do that. They started to walk up to the light. So he pulls out his cell phone
Up to the
camera
hotel?
to the hotel. He
Oh, man.
literally, like, they're like, he's right. They are walking up there. So he pulls out his cell phone and he turns on his little flashlight and he shines it down, and the little baby sea turtles start following him, and he guides them into the water.
Wow.
And I just was like, man, I think about our own lives and how we have a plan, and we start out with a great plan, but then we get distracted by the light, the noise, everything going on in our lives. And so it's real easy to get off of that path that we started on. And I think that was it. Just it made me think about, really sticking to and following the light, making sure I know where that light is, and making sure I keep heading that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I teach people all the time to do this, right? And in my
Right.
own practice, and I fall short so many times in my own life when I
Well,
don't.
I think that's so powerful too, because for us business people trying to start businesses like that to the ocean thing, like we can look at that little baby turtle and go, they have to go like what, 50 feet, right? But for us, like we've been working on, our stock market algorithm for almost 2 years now.
Yes,
Like we
yes.
as business people understand that This is years and years and years of blood, sweat, and tears towards this goal. We have to be able to keep that end goal in mind, right? And it's something that I've talked about with you guys before is you have to have your big goal. Your goal is, for these baby sea turtles, it's I need to get to the ocean. And so with all these distractions around me, every time you make a decision, like with the hotel, and obviously their babies are somewhat confused, but the question that has to be asked is walking towards the hotel going to take me towards or away from my goal? That's very specific, or very easy, I should say, to answer that question. Oh, that's easy. It's taking me away from the ocean, right? Because surely the hotel's not in the middle of the ocean, but I need to go towards the moon. That's what's taking me towards my big goal. But sometimes in business, it's just really not so clear.
Right.
And I know that we've even hit this, right now as we're trying to build this fund for our stock market algorithm. And we've been looking at, what does this look like? Who's our ideal person that we need to go after for funds? And, who do we need to talk to? And, what type of business relationships are we going to create along the way? And are those business relationships going to take us towards our final end goal of building this large company and large fund? Or are we going to end up pigeonholing ourselves in the wrong direction? And so not just thinking about the here and now, but thinking about 10 steps ahead, is this decision going to get me where I want to go? Because like, for example, right now, we want 100,000. Well, what if somebody came up to us right now and said, hey, would you sell your entire company to me for $100,000? And we could go, well, sure, that gets us our 100,000 bucks. We sell it, but ultimately it doesn't take us towards our goal. And people, I mean, that's very easy to understand. You wouldn't do that. But I think people sell themselves out short all the time because of that shiny object syndrome, right? They know that they're supposed to be going over here, but boom, there's this shiny object and it takes them over left. It takes them to the left. It takes them to the right. And that ends up slowing down your journey and maybe even killing your wealthy legacy journey more times than not.
Yeah. And one of the things I've learned with you over the last couple of years, even on this journey, as we've went through this, because years and years ago, when I was your age, when I was younger, and I always loved trading, and I always loved looking at the futures market and looking at different ways of trading and built strategies. And I always had these rules set up in place, and I even tried it. But then once you implement, it's real easy. Again, it's just like those baby sea turtles that get distracted. I get distracted and say, no, I'm going to do this. Even though I have rules, I don't stick to the plan. And I go and I switch plans midstream. And even though I know that's not the right thing to do, and it ends up just like the baby sea turtles are getting eaten or destroyed or killed, or the bad things happen when you don't stick to a plan. And that's what the beauty, I think, of what we've developed here is the rules are in place, it's locked and loaded, and we can't touch it. It's literally it. You can't move it. And I think that's the beauty, and not only of what we're doing here, but I think life in general, in building a legacy of wealth. Of you continue on that, you create a plan, you put everything into it, you make adjustments, but not on the fly, just by the seat of your pants. You literally put a lot of time into the planning, which we have over the last couple of years.
And I think, well, and there's a couple of things I want to say to that. Like real time example in the real estate side of things with me and Nathan, we were actually brought a deal by one of those deal partners that I was talking about. And one of the guys, Randy Cooper, that's working with us, he's a really awesome dude. It's been awesome working with him. And he brought us this one deal, though, that really isn't inside of our buy box. And, we've really been faced with this position or this decision of, do we pursue this deal even though it's outside of our buy box? It's outside of what we're wanting. And I think what we're kind of coming down to the decision on is that there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's plenty of deals of the type of deal that we want out there. So that means, hey, this deal is not really inside of our buy box. Like, we can pass on that because there's so many other things. But if we get hung up on this one, that could really cause a huge roadblock for our business. Even though it could be a really good deal, it could also become a roadblock because we're now stuck dealing with this problem that we don't really know how to deal with this type of property yet. Versus we know how to deal with this type, so let's just keep pumping that out. But I think that's just really, it's really powerful. So what would you say, Tim, would be like, you brought this idea of sticking to a plan. What are the steps that someone could take as they're building a business, building a new part of their business, taking their business to the next level? Like, what are the steps that, really need to happen in our own life to be disciplined in order to be able to stick to a plan?
Well, one of the things that I, of course, try to practice, and I definitely preach it a lot, is the whole idea of figuring out where you're at, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there, and making sure it's small enough steps that are realistic, but not
Right.
so small that they're like so boring. They're like, okay, they're too small, but not so big that they're so overwhelming that you feel like you'll never get there. But the
Right.
key is, like we talked about earlier, the planning. You really need to spend some time figuring out where you want to go, and understanding what that looks like, and then breaking those apart into milestones. And
Yeah.
then whenever you're building a business, you need to know each step that you need to take to get there. And then understand the why behind this. Because if you're building a business because your cousin George said this is what you need to do, and you start doing it, you're not going to be fired up about that. You need to be fired up about what you're going to do. The why for you is just as important as the plan and the implementation process.
Right.
But the steps, you're fired up, you're excited, you've got a good plan in place. Now it's literally a rhythm. There's two things I would highly recommend. You keep a journal, a log of things you have to do every week, and you start planning. Okay, this is what I need to do. This is the milestone I need to hit this week. I'm going to write down, did I meet it? If I didn't, why? What were my obstacles? And then bring other people in around you to help you to kind of brainstorm. Like you and I, we brainstorm a lot. We hit a roadblock, and then we'll bounce ideas off each other, and we'll come up with a way to work around that obstacle. So I think that that's really key, is to
Yeah.
keep people around you that you can, number one, hold you accountable, but number two, to bounce things off of when you do hit some obstacles, and then you just keep going, get back up and hit it again the
Right.
next week once you kind of come up with maybe a different plan or a
Something.
your plan.
Yeah. Something I want to throw in there is I love that you said each week that you reassess, did you meet your milestones each week? And that right there kind of puts into, I think, perspective what a bite-sized chunk is, right? It's not something I can get done in an hour necessarily. Not to say we don't have a to-do list. That's more of a to-do list style, right? Something
Yeah.
that you can get done in a day is like, maybe did you have a good day or not? You can still high five yourself at the end of a good day, but to really set like healthy milestones in that week. So I would say 1 week to 1 month. 1 month is getting pretty long. 1 week is kind of on the short end. So good chunks that you can really celebrate those wins.
Absolutely.
Like for example, I think one of our things right now, that as we're going through a final phase of testing on our algorithm, is we're looking at the end of each week. We're also in a 90-day testing period, but we're also breaking it down by each month. And so we had a really good month in June. We made 27 point something percent. We were super pumped about that. We've already made, we're now in halfway through July. We made a little over 10% this week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so like we're celebrating that right now. Like we just had an awesome week, but we've had good, 2 weeks. We're looking to see what's happening at the end of July. But we already know we did great in June. But if we weren't going to celebrate it all to the end of that 90 days, that'd be a pretty slow, tedious 90 days. Because it's
Yes.
like I can't celebrate till I get to the very end. But also, if we were going to try to celebrate every single day, like with this, there are days that we lose money.
Yeah.
And so that would be pretty depressing. Per week, every week we've made money every week. Per month, we make really good money every month. By minute, sometimes some minutes look really bad and some days don't look that good. But overall, it's that big picture, and I think that's where you get that steady progress, because our journey is this like it's an uptrend, but
Yeah.
it definitely is just like this valleys, peaks and valleys all the way up to the top. So we
Yeah.
have to
And
be
I
able to put those goals in perspective.
absolutely, and I think another key thing, just to add on to that, since you and I go back and forth so much, is keep people around you that will also lift you up and support you and be your
Ooh,
cheerleader.
that's so
Not
good.
someone that's going to
Yes.
put you down and say, you know what, you're never going to succeed. You're going to
Or
fail,
yes, man.
right? You have to have those people that they're in your corner, and they're your cheerleader, and that's the people
Yeah.
you need to surround yourself with.
Right. But they can't be yes men either.
No.
You want critical thinkers. You don't want people who are going to beat you up and tell you, yeah, I knew you shouldn't have done this. Like you're a fool for even trying. That's absolutely not the mindset that you need around you. We also
Right.
need somebody that's just going to tell you what you want to hear. You need critical feedback and counsel. And that's why I
Absolutely.
think it's powerful, to get around people who are a step above you, in what they're doing in business, whether that's a podcast, or that's mentoring, or whatever that might be. Like I've been a part of some awesome mentorship groups. I know you, and I've also been just mentored by, particular people in my life. It's been powerful. I know, Tim, you have had the same. And it's typically those relationships that really help to propel us to the next level.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. If whatever you want to do in life, once you figure out kind of where you want to go, find those people that have been successful, not just that just talk about it, but
Right.
practice it, that do it
Right.
every day, and they do
And not
it.
even they practice it 10 years ago, but they practice it now. They're
Yes.
where they are currently at the place that you want to be.
Yeah, because they're gonna tell you about their ups and their downs, just like Kendall was talking about. We have downs, and we need to be there, and we figure it out, and then we have a lot of big ups. But
Yeah.
we're realistic enough to know that we can look at both sides and figure out, okay, how can we tweak this to make this better, and then how can we get more of what we're doing really well, but
Yeah.
still remaining joyful through that process because we're on fire. We believe in what we're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I want to kind of transition now. Like, how are we actually applying this to our businesses this week? Specifically, we'll talk about the stock market trader because Nathan's not here. But if I think of any specific examples on that, I will apply that. But, or, I got a good example for both. So, starting with the stock market trader, this week, as far as like applying this type of principle, the goal is right now, how do we get $100,000 into a fund type structure by September 4th? Now, this won't be a full fund. I've been advised on how to create kind of like an infant type fund structure that's going to be able to, in the long term, become a full fund as we're kind of nurturing it and proving out this business model. Anyways, so the first guy I talked to, a very close real estate friend, he is tapped out of capital right now, and that was a no. Second guy I talked to, also another really close guy in real estate, he has so much going on in some other real estate investing deals, and he's able to make better returns than we're offering. So we're offering 1.5% a month. So in the real estate space, that's really good. You're looking at like 18% a year if you don't roll it back in. If you do roll it back in, it's like 19.56. So it's really good as far as like, returns on some real estate stuff. Both of those were no's. It's a huge blow. And so, but what I could have let that beat me up, and I could have let that completely discourage me where I wanted to quit. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm stepping back and I'm saying, okay, I'm reassessing my goals. Maybe I'm not talking to the right people. My goal is $100,000, and I'm going to get to that $100,000. That's where I'm going. Maybe I'm not talking to the right people. And a lot of the people that are surrounded by me right now are real estate people because that's the space that I've been in for years. But getting people to switch from the thought process of real estate into stocks has been more difficult than I thought it would be. Also, getting active investors to invest into something else more passively doesn't make sense for them because they're making more money actively than they would be passively. And I didn't think about that either. And those are coming to my attention. And so now I'm having to pivot. I'm still staying focused. I'm still staying on plan. But now I'm looking at, we really stepped back and said, okay, that's not our target audience. Our target audience is actually probably going to be the retired wealthy guy, probably somebody who sold a business a few years ago. And now they're looking, how do I keep my money to work? Because their whole life they've made a lot of money by working hard and keeping their money at work. And then they got this huge lump sum payout after they sold a business. But now they're looking for, how do I get this money moving and grooving for me? And that's the real question. So that's what we're working on. On the other side, on the real estate stuff, staying focused. We have one person who's working, doing mailer stuff for us. We've got all these agents now out there finding deals for us. We're getting more deals coming in from the agents than we are from the mailers. And so now we're looking at removing people around and saying, okay, let's take this, person over here that's working on the mailers and maybe move them over to work more project management stuff for the realtors, so we can keep this side of the business streamlined because this is what's working. Our big goal is we wanted to do this deal type. We don't care if it's off market or if it's on market, right? And so we thought we would have more success off market, but it's proving out that we're having more success on market because we started off market. And then after we got that kind of moving and the mailers working, then we went to an on market approach as well to just try both, assuming our hypothesis was this off market's going to way outperform the on market. And now the on market's way outperforming the off market. So now, how do we take a slight pivot, still staying focused on our goals, and say, how do we get to that end goal in the best way possible? And so that's how we're applying it into the real estate stuff. And I think Tim could even probably share on the background some technology stuff that we're working on. I don't want to get too in the weeds because it's kind of proprietary, but what we're doing to stay focused, even though we're twisting, turning, and pivoting. But I think what might be interesting is I always like to get raw and real with people, and I like to talk about what didn't go well. So let's both think of an example right quick, and I'm gonna have to chew on this. But let's both chew on an example of how did we not stay focused on the end goal this week? Like, in what ways did we mess up as business people? Maybe we didn't stay focused. Maybe we got a little bit off track. What did we not do well, or what didn't go well this week that, or maybe over at least the last 2 weeks, that we can just be raw and real with our audience and say, hey, even though we're on this upward journey, like, we still have days where we suck too.
Well, I can give you one example, but technology wise, we every evening we flip everything on and get the technology rolling so that it can it's like all automated. We've got these computers, these servers that are sitting out in the cloud, and they're doing the work. Well, I flipped one on and nothing, and it didn't work. And I was like, so what's going on here? And I didn't. So usually, with an IT background, I should know better. You should always have a backup server. Now we back up our code, we do all that, but I didn't have something I could quickly just fire up and have a complete backup. So I had to spend time, and I had to clone the server, and I had to get it up and running, and I had to spend time doing that. And I got really nervous. Am I going to get this all done in time? But I did. Everything worked out. But it helped me realize, again, planning is so key. Even in infancy, even when you're running tests and you're doing development work, it is so important to be thinking about all those little details, and making sure you plan for the worst, even though most of the time they don't happen. So that was my one little thing this week that I could say that I've learned from and that I will do differently going forward.
Yeah. One thing for me is actually the first guy that I talked to for funding. He told me that he had just funded the most recent project that he funded. It was a hard money loan that he did to a guy. He was like, I'm really interested, but I actually just did my funds out last Thursday, and I talked to him like on Monday. So just a couple days beforehand, he had given out the remaining of his funds. Not to say he won't get funds back, but I thought to myself, man, I should have given myself a longer runway. I should have primed him, back at the beginning of the 90 days saying, hey, and, we're going to see how the next 30 days goes, but we're hoping to see these numbers, and just want to let you know. So it was well ahead of time. And I'm still, we're now about 45 to 60 days out from, our live date, but I should have had a longer runway. I thought that would be enough of a runway. But something that I've learned in deals, and I'm a little bit kicking myself that I didn't apply that in this situation, is to have as long of a runway as possible. Because you need that runway. So yeah. That is probably one thing that I didn't do very well this week. But yeah, so the last thing that I want to talk about, and this week I'm really excited to talk about this, is just kind of our final wrap up. What is the big steps that we took to build wealth into our legacy this week? And so you think about it, Tim. I'm gonna share mine. This week, I got to take my little girl to VBS. It was her first year to go to Vacation Bible School. I got to go to VBS. I got to help out with the second graders. I spent all morning, every day this week, hanging out with them, exhausting myself. having a great time. But, you know, it's exciting to be at this place in my journey where I have a stable business, stable enough on the real estate side. And then on this that we're spinning up as well, where I can go to VBS for a whole week and I don't have to worry about burning up one of my 2 vacation weeks for the year. Like I get, I got to take that time off and it doesn't count against me in any way. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to build this up. Also be able to pour into the things that I think are really important, like those students. Now, in that case, it's time. But in other ways, in other types of ministries, I want to be able to overflow, giving financially into different types of ministries. And so that's why I do what I do. But getting to be able to not have to just send my daughter to VBS, but getting to take her and participate in that with her. She was in her class and I taught my class because I like my kids to have independence. But I got to see her during worship time and I got to pick her up and I got to take her on a date one day afterwards. And that is so powerful. That's going to help my long-term legacy because of that relationship with my daughter. That's me building, truly legacy by pouring into those students, by getting to do more than just working. And that's the beauty of not being tied to a job 9 to 5 plus hours, where you're working 40 plus hours a week, or even an entrepreneur where you're literally tied to a 60 or 80 hour a week grind. Like that's not what this is about.
Right.
This is about building more. So to me, that was huge this week. And I was so excited to be able to do that. What about you, Tim?
Oh, well, for me, it was being able to travel with my wife, with Kendall's mom, with just being able to go. Because if I had a job and I was back in my career and I was traveling, we'd be going different directions. And so I got to pour into my marriage, strengthen that, but at the same time, like Kendall said, everything was just working on its own. So I got to spend time with her. I got to travel with her. I didn't have to be at the house, or at a job location. And then I also got to reach out and start building some contacts in different ministry areas this week that I wanted to do. So, but where Kendall's really going is family legacy, and so I think for me it's the marriage. It's spending time with my wife and pouring into my marriage, where in the past I was working 60, 70 hours a week, traveling all the time, and I never had the time to do that. So to me, that really filled me this week.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful.
And I do want to add something real quick before we end this, is that one of the things, just going back to what you said earlier about open-handed, and I think pivoting is so key. You can't just walk in with, you have a plan, but you need to be open enough to know that you may have to pivot, and that's okay. Don't let your plan be so concrete that it literally becomes a wall that you hit and you stop. And you
I think that
give up. That was so when you said that, it just resonated with me.
Where you're at's concrete, right? And where you're going, that's usually fairly concrete. But it's those steps in between that we have to be able to be dynamic with, right? And I think that's what you're saying right there. And I agree. That is so powerful. You have to be able to shift and pivot. You're still going to that end destination. Maybe there's a better way to get there. Maybe you found another route. Maybe you found a shortcut, right? Or maybe you found, hey, I need to do this a long way to be able to do it right. Either way, keep going towards that end goal.
Yes, that's a really important lesson for me and for I think anyone listening to hear that and continue on their journey, and don't let things stop you from continuing moving forward, even if you have, like Kendall said, even if you have to pivot or change, tweak a few things.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, guys, this week has been all about how to stay on track, how to stay on a plan. And so this week going out, think about number one, what is your big goal? What is it that you're going towards? How can you plan out for getting to that end destination from where you're at right now? And then stick to that goal. You might have to pivot along the way, but make sure you're sticking to that goal and have the accountability around you to be able to get there. I'm Kendall. This is Tim. You're going to be seeing a lot more of him going forward with the Wealthy Legacy Journey. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.